It says preparing to live stream the meeting. Setting up your YouTube live, it says. Done. Redirecting to YouTube. And welcome back to the Crypto Hulk Show. I don't know if anybody's here yet. I'll give them a few minutes to get going. I can see the page is up and somebody's there. Mark's preparing to live stream the meeting. Mark Sinclair. I can see Mark Sinclair. I'll give a couple minutes here to get this set up. Welcome back, everybody, to Crypto Hulk Show. We got Caleb Brown here. And right now, it's a good time that Caleb Brown is here because we got some stuff to go over. And I think what I'm going to do is start off the show with having Jim introduce himself and saying a few things. Go ahead, Jim. Let him know.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for having me back on, Hulk, and always good to be on these live streams. Try and do them every couple of weeks. Wish it was a bit more of a better time in the market right now. Obviously, we're seeing a level of choppiness and uncertainty, not only in the crypto space, but the broader markets in general. The S&P 500 had a pretty bad drawdown last night. So there's a lot of uncertainty in the market. Ultimately, I think we're still in a positive space if you look at it objectively around what's actually happening in the economy, but also the advancements that we're feeling currently within the crypto space. So we can chat a lot about that today, and happy to answer any questions around what we're currently seeing in the market. In terms of, I think it's always worth, at least at the start of this call, to give a little bit of an introduction around who I am and what we do here at Caleb Brown. I know that a lot of you know me and have heard me speak on this platform a lot, but I am conscious that there are relatively new people as well that are always coming through this channel. So for those that aren't aware, as Hulk said, my name's Jim. I look after the partnership side here at the business at Caleb Brown, but also look after and work really closely with everyone within this community and our brokerage team as well. So if you don't know anything about Caleb Brown, we're a premium white glove brokerage service in the crypto space. And what I mean by that is that every single client that works with us gets their own dedicated broker. We help educate our clients, keep them as informed as possible about their portfolio, but essentially provide a really easy service for them to buy and sell and swap into crypto. So we offer about 250 different assets on our platform, but it's done so through your own personalized broker. It's done through best-in-class liquidity. We offer institutional grade custody. So unlike an exchange where, yes, there's a lot of ease of use, but there's no real customer support, there's no real consumer protection, with Caleb Brown, we do the exact opposite. So we make sure that all of our clients are as informed as possible about their portfolio. They're given the best customer service support through not only their broker, but through our support team as well. And it's just that upper echelon level of service that we think everyone in this space should really have when it comes to their portfolio. So I'm excited to be here. We've worked really closely with Hulk now for the best part of a year, I think. I've had the chance to meet Hulk in person and had a chance to meet a lot of you as well through other events that we've run in this space. But we've worked really closely with Hulk and his community. A lot of them use us day to day and have used us as a trusted service in this space. So we're really fortunate to be a part of this partnership. It's worked really well. We've got a lot of exciting things that we're planning to do in the future, especially with our US clients, which I know a lot of you are based in the US. So we'll spend about an hour today just chatting about the markets. We'll answer any questions you may have about Caleb Brown, but excited to be here. And let's get started.
Somebody by the name of Roll 209 full. I got an account. How I get Crypto Hulk as my referral. I mean, if you look below the video here, you'll see there's a link. You can click on that link, and that's a referral link right there. So I'll get credit for signing you up, and they'll know that you joined because of the Crypto Hulk show. So that's how. Just look below that video.
Yeah, the other thing with Roll, so sorry to cut you off, Hulk, because this does happen a lot where people sign up but haven't used the link. There's a few ways to make sure that we at least know you come from Hulk. So you can tell your broker, so you can email them. You can, in your initial consultation call, if you decide to book one, you can let us know that you come from Hulk. It's always really valuable to know where our community members have come from because our brokers know Hulk very well. We know that his community, so it's always valuable to know that. But certainly, please feel free to put your email in the chat. or email me at jim@kelvinbrown.com, and I can make sure that that link is attributed to you.
Okay. I wanted to start off. Let's see. Joel Leho. Hi, Hulk. Just wanted to give a shout out to the people that have helped me out tremendously. Without them and an occasion or two, I would lost some of my crypto without their help. Um, yeah, that's why I want to start off with I was never an affiliate of any other business. I started making videos about 5.5 years ago, and always kind of wanted to be an affiliate. And we talked about having a tequila company. That one didn't work out, probably for the better. But I was going to have a tequila company sponsor the show, and that business kind of didn't. Yeah, something kind of went south there. But we have Kaylen Brown. I wanted a business that would help all of you. And I used to watch the Kaylen Brown commercials, and um, then I was contacted by Kaylen Brown, and I told you guys I did not partner up with Kaylen Brown at first. See, a lot of times what happens, well, actually, all the time, how it works out is an influencer signs up with somebody and then tells you afterwards to, hey, join them. So my show's a little different, a lot different. So what I did is I had you guys, I told you, I like this Kaylen Brown company. It's very interesting. I want you guys to get hooked up with them and test drive it. I want you to see, are they helpful? Do they explain stuff for you? Can can we work together with them? And a lot of you guys joined up and you're like, man, this place is cool. We like the people there and stuff. And then about 6 weeks later, 6 weeks, I had a talk with Kaylen Brown and said, okay, I think I'm ready to sign up with Kaylen Brown because I wanted to make sure the Crypto Hulk people like Kaylen Brown first. I'm not going to go hook up with some company and then say, oh, join them. It's like, if you don't like them, I don't like them. And that's how I am. If you don't feel comfortable with this particular affiliate, or I'm in the affiliate of that company, then I just won't join them. But so many of you guys liked Kaylen Brown, and then you got me to actually sign up, and then I have no regrets. I one of the things that sold me on Kaylen Brown is that we're using Fireblocks, and I just read an article to you guys where BNY Mellon uses Fireblocks, and Ripple puts custody of their stablecoin into BNY Mellon, who uses Fireblocks for custody. So I'm like, whoa. And there's a lot of those articles. I've heard, Fireblocks has a very strong presence in crypto custody. It's your keys are sharded. So they're put in different places. So there's no one point of failure. It would take a tremendous amount of work. Now I've got my stuff in a hardware ledger also, maybe 25% of my holdings or somewhere's around there. Um, and but what I wanted to show you is that we've got the best. Where does Ripple put their crypto? In Fireblocks. Now, Ripple also has Medico and stuff like that for institutional custody and for their customers. But that's a company. When I heard BNY Mellon was working with Fireblocks and stuff, I'm like, oh gosh, okay, that's something I got to get into. And then Kaylen Brown has that. So that's what I like. Let me go into some comments here and see what we got going on for questions.
Yeah, and I'd say just while you're looking for questions is, look, we spend a lot of time ourselves in terms of due diligence around partners and communities that we want to work with. We've been around since 2016, so we have a really strong reputation that we look to uphold as well. And I can certainly attest to the fact that we worked really closely with Hulk. We worked really closely with this community before committing to anything because we wanted to see whether this was the right fit. We really want to make sure we're working with people that are really passionate about this space, but want to get the best investments possible and are willing to be educated about crypto. So the two communities aligned really well together. And I can certainly say that our brokers have had an amazing time servicing this community. But ultimately, we want to make sure that everyone's a part of this community is making the best decisions possible when it comes to their crypto portfolio, and that we can inform you as much as possible about what's currently happening in the market and what may be happening in the future.
Joe Leho, thank you very much for that tax-free donation. Ed 105 Boys says, I will ask my broker if Hulk got credit for my account enrollment. Okay, somebody has a question. Gino Lim, he's one of my $500 a month customers. Jim, we need, this is what Gino says. I'm just repeating what he's saying. We need to get RiseNet. So if you want to take a note, I don't know if you guys, if you could look into it, I'd appreciate it. It's a crypto called Rise. I believe it's RIZE. And there's a net called RiseNet. And what Rise does, we went over this on my show about 3 weeks ago. Rise is a company that tokenizes for the Canton network. I'm like, what? But I I don't know how if Caleb Brown is able to even look into this. I mean, I guess they could look into it. Doesn't mean they're going to get it. But Rise is
Yeah,
right here. What Rise does is they work with Canton, and Canton is going to have all this tokenization done, and Rise is the company that's going to work with them to do it. So I'm going to put the token address right here.
yeah. So we
No,
looked into both Rise and
oh,
Canton.
okay.
Unfortunately, I mean, Rise is definitely has an interesting utility play, and that alone is fine. Like we really resonate, and we'd rather list things that are actually doing something within the market and have an interesting use case. Unfortunately, with Rise at this stage, we can't list it just through the liquidity reasons. It's just not liquid enough for us to actually be able to source it. And the reason for that is if you can think about some of the clients that we work with daily, some of them wanted to invest 6 figures, 7 figures worth into these assets. So we need to make sure that we can actually allow for clients to enter into its size. But even more
Oh, wow.
importantly, if they're holding a large position of Rise, the ability to actually sell out of that as well without incurring significant slippage, or for us to be able to actually do that in a timely manner. So at this stage, Rise it's gone through the token request because I know that it's come up quite a few times with this community. We are currently, we have reviewed it. It's a no at this stage, but it's something that we're monitoring to see if we can get more liquidity in the market, then we'll sufficiently list it. So that's for Rise. And Canton, because I know that that's also come up quite a few times, that's currently with our team to review. Canton's a little trickier. It's a lot more easier from a liquidity perspective, but it's also a privacy network. And there's a little bit of a more of a legal issue for us in listing privacy tokens, security tokens as well, like Zcash, for example. I think we actually might list Zcash, but some of the other ones that are like Monero, I think might be one where it's a full privacy token. That we run into legal issues in listing those assets for a range of reasons. So Canton, we're currently reviewing. I don't have an answer yet, but hopefully we can list Canton. But I'll make sure that Hulk's as informed as possible when it comes to when we know a decision on that, and he can let the community know.
All right. Now, Kraken has Canton Network. I think they just got it like a week or two ago or somewhere in there. So it is something that I guess Kraken decided for some reason to have. But yeah, just let us know when you guys yes or no on that. I guess as a crypto evolves, so does your guys. It might fit your standard. Maybe it doesn't fit it today, maybe next week, next month, maybe never. But as cryptos evolve, sometimes Caleb Brown can either as cryptos evolve, they can either get into Caleb Brown's system or out of Caleb Brown's system. Jim, tell us about the Root Network. Uh, you delisted that one. Um,
Yeah, so I mean, look, I don't know specifically about routes. Obviously, that's our operations team work through these things. Sometimes we do have to delist or provide limited functionality for some assets, depending on, again, if there's enough liquidity for it or if circumstances have changed around that asset. Sometimes some assets are migrated to a new smart contract. So I'm not sure if that's the case for Root. I'd have to double check on that. But sometimes we've had assets in the past, such as Fetch or other AI tokens, they actually get migrated to a new asset and under a new listing. And so that's where you might not see Root anymore because it's actually been migrated to a new asset. I don't know if that's the case with Root. Root more than likely is just because we don't have enough liquidity for it. So we may delist it or we have limited functionality for it. It doesn't mean that we won't list it again in the future. And I know that's kind of annoying if you're currently listing it. But the reason for that is, as I said before, we want to make sure that our clients can sell out of positions, but also buy into positions with size when they need. And so we're constantly reviewing different assets to see whether that's actually feasible moving forward.
I actually have the Root network in Caleb and Brown, so you guys can still obviously hold it for me. Is that
I need to double check on Root. Honestly, I haven't been up to date with this one, but let me follow up with this and I'll get back to everyone in this community about it.
okay? Because somebody
Okay,
asked
so
me
hang
here
on, I'm just looking at it now.
oh, okay.
So from what I can see, the Root network, because of, as I said before, dwindling liquidity, it's been moved to sell only. So you can still hold it with us and sell it through
Okay.
us. We just can't
Okay.
we just can't buy it through us now because we can't get enough liquidity for it. So there's never going to be a scenario where if we delist something or we remove the functionality of it that you lose that asset. Like we're not just going to take that asset from you, right? If we are delisting something, it's to move it to say a sell only. Or if we are going to remove it completely, we'll give sufficient time for our clients to move those assets off the platform. So Root's been moved to sell only. It doesn't mean that you have to take those assets off our platform.
Okay. Let's see. The one here, somebody by the name of Roll 209 Full says the one good thing about Caleb Brown is when you sell order limits hit, you can liquefy your assets faster on the exchanges. They only allow you $1,000 or so a day. Jim, explain the Caleb and Brown process. If you want to sell off a crypto, how fast can you get your money sent to your bank or whatever? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I mean, there's different things within that. So if you're looking to sell out of a position and you want to do so quickly, you can either just do so yourself through your Caleb Brown portal. So you can sign up into your account, you can make that trade, and it's done almost instantly. Like as soon as that process is, as soon as that order's processed, we'll actually go out and get that trade done for you and get the best price possible. You can also do that for your broker. So if you maybe don't have access to your login at that stage, or you just want to do it on email, you can send an email request to your broker. I know that Hulk's done this a lot in the past with his broker, Sean, and they'll actually execute the trade on your behalf. Now, that's usually done within a minute. We have brokers, but also account managers constantly reviewing trades that come through on an inbox 24/7. So around the clock, whenever you want to get that trade done, we can execute it for you. Now, obviously, it's probably not going to be as quickly as doing it yourself in the portal, but it's usually done quite quickly. And then if we're talking about in terms of, I think Roll might have mentioned like limit orders or stop loss orders or having some sort of market order within the market. If you have an order in place and the price hits that, the trade will get done, executed immediately. So those trades that are put in, whether that's a buy order or a sell order, and if it hits that particular price, that gets executed automatically on our end. And then let's just say you're ready to withdraw to a bank account, you can withdraw that and go through the process of that. Now, if it's a large withdrawal, our brokers will call you to verify that it's you. Again, that's part of our security feature that so many of our clients love. We'll verify that it's you processing that withdrawal, and then we can withdraw that to your bank account. It depends on your bank at that point in terms of how long that can take, but it's usually 1 to 2 business days if all things are done correctly.
Okay, so what I've heard on other, like on some exchanges or something, where let's say you want to cash out $1 million of a crypto, they'll only allow you to take out, like, Jim, have you heard like what exchanges only allow you to take out a certain amount of money per day to send to your bank account? Like, which ones have you heard of?
I look. I have heard that Uphold, as an example, just because we've had quite a few clients come from there, that theirs were around 20K or 30K a day. I can see that Rolls just put in the chat that exchanges only allow 10K a day. So it probably just depends on the exchange, and it also depends on the time in market, right? So if we're at a really volatile point, or maybe the market's doing really well, and everyone wants to cash out, they'll actually impose even smaller limits than that. And so that's really a stressful experience that I've gone through personally that you really don't want when you're ready to exit the market. So we impose no limits for our clients. We have many clients that are doing 6K, six figure, seven figure withdrawals, weekly. But certainly with us, we'll process that withdrawal in one go. And we also charge you a fee for it, which is usually what you'll experience on exchanges as well. So we always recommend for clients, whether you're using our service or not, to go through that withdrawal process on another exchange, if that's where your assets are, to see what the process is like, see what the fees are, but probably most importantly, what are the limits? Because if you're someone that's done really well from your altcoin portfolio, or say XRP does really well and you sell out of that, and you've got 500K to withdraw to a bank account, that could take you upwards of a month on some of these exchanges, right? Which is just not the process that you want to go through. So we always recommend to do a test withdrawal, whether you do it through us or somewhere else. But certainly with us, we'll process that withdrawal all in one go for you, and you get peace of mind that that US dollars is in your bank account, as quickly as possible.
Okay. Yeah, because it's like if you got $500,000, your crypto goes up and you want to cash it out at Caleb Brown, it's pretty much they could send it to your bank very quickly. That's going to be your money. If you click the sell button, you sell $500,000, that's all yours. And they can send it faster because they don't have these limits where you can only take out 20, 30,000 bucks a day or whatever, 10,000 a day. It's like they can just send it all right to your bank. Like, so that's kind of why, like if something happens like a bull run and you're on an exchange, I mean, these exchanges, they lock up. So I'm just telling you, I've seen it happen. You guys have told me. So that's one of the reasons why the Caleb Brown is here to explain that aspect of their business, where it's not like these exchanges where it takes you like a month to pull out 500,000 or $1 million or something. That's not going to happen at Caleb Brown. So that's why another reason why I'm with them.
Yeah, and I think if
Uh,
you're someone that likes using exchanges, or maybe you've got your own cold wallet, or you're using some other service you're really happy with, that's totally fine. The only thing that I like to suggest with people that are in the crypto space is there's no fee to have a Caleb Brown account. So you may as well get set up and get yourself set up with a broker and see if the service is right for you, and to have that just as an option available to you. Because as Hulk said, look, we saw that mass liquidation event back in October. A lot of other platforms and exchanges actually went into downtime. So you couldn't even access your assets, let alone make a trade. So sometimes it's valuable to have different options. And certainly that's the case. Look, I don't work in an exchange, but I have exchange accounts, and that's where I got started in crypto. But I hold a very big portion with Caleb and Brown to make trades when I want, and with that ease of use through a broker. So it's not that you need to necessarily sign up with us and move all your crypto with us and do all your crypto transactions with us. But it's certainly valuable in this space to have the benefit of options. And as I said, it's completely free to work with us. So it's not like you need to pay to set up an account or speak to a broker. So I always recommend at least creating the account, because then you've got that readily available if something maybe happens to your exchange in the future.
yeah. So explain a little bit if you could, because there's going to be ups and there's going to be downs with crypto. That's just how it goes. Let's say something goes up. Explain to us a little bit on your liquidity providing system. How is it that you get crypto? How is your system different than an exchange? When they go to cash out on an exchange, this or that happens, but at Caleb Brown, this is what we do. Please explain that.
Yeah, so this is something that is quite different to how most exchanges operate, and it's in relation to how we source liquidity. So usually through an exchange, they are considered to be a market maker. So most of the biggest exchanges out there are market makers. And what we mean by that is they have their own liquidity pools, and they essentially set the market. So they have pretty deep liquidity usually, especially for the larger assets, but they ultimately set the price, or the price is dictated by how much liquidity is within that pool. But they can also charge things like spread and slippage within that market itself. So that's beneficial for a lot of reasons. But what it ultimately does mean is that there is a sort of single point of failure when it comes to accessing liquidity because they only access liquidity through one source. Whereas with Caleb and Brown, we are not a market maker. So we source our liquidity from a whole range of different avenues, different liquidity pools. We use a lot of OTC desks. So we have partnerships with some of the biggest OTC desks in the world. Sometimes we'll also pull liquidity from centralized exchanges as well and decentralized exchanges. But what that ultimately means is that we're sourcing our liquidity from a whole range of different sources, which means we don't have a single point of failure. This is pretty inconsequential when we're talking about, say, Bitcoin, where there's tons of liquidity in the market for it. But if we're talking about some of these altcoins that we're talking about today and some of the assets that I know Hulk is interested in, this is a very important point for you because it ultimately means that if you're to go through an exchange where maybe there's not much liquidity for that asset because there's significant demand for it, or maybe it's just really hard to source, that's where you'll start to get a lot of worse price results, whether you're buying into the asset or selling out of it. And that's because exchanges will charge spreads, and spreads is the fee that they make. And that's the difference between the price that you can buy something at and the price you sell it at. Whereas with us, we'll source our liquidity from a whole range of different avenues. We don't charge spread and slippage, so you're not charged those hidden costs and fees. But ultimately, it means we can actually source the best in market liquidity for you and get you the best price. And so that's something that's really important, especially when you're investing in altcoins that I know a lot of people in this community are doing. So again, that's something to be across. And often at times people really like to complain about our transaction fee. And yes, the transaction fee is high compared to an exchange, but what you're not factoring in is the hidden cost of spread, which is where most exchanges make their money. We don't charge any of that. And often on these exchanges, that spread could be anywhere from 4 to 5%. So something to be across, but that's how we source liquidity. Again, it's different, it's institutional grade. It's something that our operations team work really closely with. And it's why we're quite selective in terms of what we list. Because if we list it, we want to make sure we have deep liquidity for it.
Okay, so what I've noticed is if you go buy something on like MetaMask, sometimes the fees are really low, where someone might say, oh, it's cheaper than Caleb Brown. Then there's other times I've seen these fees go up to 50% impact fee. Jim, explain what the hell's going on with that.
Yeah, so that's more so on the slippage side of things. So that's where if you're trying to make a trade out of a large position in an asset that doesn't have that much liquidity in it. So let's just say there's very minimal liquidity, but I have $500,000 that I'm trying to sell into the market. There's not enough liquidity in the market or buyers in the market to essentially buy that liquidity off me. So that's where you'll incur slippage. And slippage is what essentially is you jump in the price of something because you have so much of it. And there's only so many people that want to buy it at that price, right? So as I continue to sell and sell into the market, what happens to that price is it drops and drops and drops. And that's the slippage because that's the percentage game that I'm willing to give up in order to sell that position. Now, that is unfortunate for a lot of reasons. And if you're to do it through a hot wallet, say MetaMask, you can dictate what the slippage percentage is, but it may mean that if you're only willing to have, say, 2% slippage or 5% slippage, your trade will just never get executed, right? Whereas with us, we'll actually trade slice the deal for you. So again, this is another benefit of having an experienced team of traders here is if you've got a really large position in a liquid asset, we'll go, okay, great, Hulk. We'll do this for you, but it may take a while longer because we're actually going to sell it in little batches. And to do that, it means we're not going to move the market too much. And it means you're going to get the best price possible. Yes, it may take a little longer for us to execute the trade, but it means you're not going to incur or lose, say, 50% of the value of it because we'll sell it in smaller chunks. That may take, sometimes that could take a few hours. Sometimes for some clients, that could take a couple of days, right? It just depends on the asset, depends on liquidity in the market. But ultimately, that's a decision for the client to make. But that's where the benefit of having a team like ours that can trade what that deal for you is really important.
Okay, now another thing I want you guys to understand, watch the show. When Caleb Brown does a trade for you, like we don't have to pay slippage, okay? So if you're on these other exchanges, you're going to pay certain ones. You're going to pay these costs, okay, to have it done. At Caleb Brown, they pay for it. So even though you're paying your what 3.5% or whatever, there's no other fee. These other places you're going to have different fees. Here's one thing. when you go on to an exchange, we've seen this. You go on to an exchange, the crypto's 5 cents, let's say on CoinGecko, but I go to like Coinbase and it's actually 5.5 cents. Jim, explain what the hell's going on with that.
Yeah, so that's the spread that I was talking about before. So that's where there'll be a difference between the price that you buy something at and the price that you sell something at. And that'll be different to what you maybe see on the market price of CoinGecko or some of these other aggregators. And so the reason for that, and the best exercise that I always encourage people that are using exchanges to do is to put, go on these exchanges, have a tab open that shows the price that you can buy, say XRP at, and then open another tab, go to the same exchange, and then look at the price that I can sell my XRP at. And you'll see that there's a difference between those two prices, and that's the spread. So that's the spread that an exchange will impose. And unfortunately, that's not readily, like, unless you go through that exercise that I just mentioned, you're not going to see that when you go into these exchanges and buy something or sell something. It's not transparent. And that's something that's always been in the case in crypto. These hidden costs have always been a part of doing your dealings with these exchanges. And ultimately, I had to go through that process because I used to use an Australian exchange called CoinSpot. And I'd always noticed that the price is widely different to what I'm seeing on some of these market aggregators. And that's until I realized that actually, okay, this is the spread, and figuring out what the spread is. And unfortunately, that's not something that when you do the trade, they're not going to tell you what the spread is. So I always encourage people to go through that exercise to see it themselves. Whereas with us, you'll know the fee that we charge. Whereas in transparent as possible, you'll know exactly what it is that we're charging you every time you make a trade. So it's there, it's available for you, and there's no additional hidden costs. There's no funny business going on our end. And that's the way that we think the crypto space should be when it comes to buying and selling assets.
You know what? One thing I noticed, so with Caleb Brown, like if I want to buy XRP at Coinbase, I'm buying from them, and when I want to sell it, I'm selling back to them because they're like the sole source. It's kind of like, now tell you, I won't mention names of an exchange, but a typical exchange, if I buy a crypto from them, they're going to make me pay a little more, and when I sell it, they're going to give me a little less. Is that common in the industry?
Yeah, so how it will work usually with a spread is that when you go to buy something, it's more expensive than it should be because they're charging their fee on top of the price, right? And then when you go to sell, you'll get less than what the market rate is because they're obviously adding their fee to it as well. So that's how the spread works, is that the price will be higher, but then when you look to sell the same asset, you'll see that actually, why is this price now less when I'm going to sell it? And so that's something that I had to figure out in my journey probably 6 or so years ago. So spreads have been around, since the dawn of exchanges, and it's how in traditional finance, it's usually how brokers and other financial providers have made their money in the past. But certainly with exchanges, they'll charge a really small transaction fee, and that's usually when people say, "Well, why are you guys charging such a high fee?" Outside of obviously all the additional benefits you get through our brokerage, it's because they're actually making most of their money on those hidden costs that they're not making available to you. So again, it's something that we try and educate our clients on. We understand that our fee seems a lot higher, but there's a reason for that. It's because we're transparent about what we charge. On top of all the other, obviously, additional benefits you get outside of a broker, the custody, liquidity, all of those as well.
Now, what does Caleb Brown do? When you guys buy a crypto from me, you look for like the lowest price on the market, and when you go to sell my crypto, you try to find the highest bidder. Is that what's that about?
Yeah, great question. So that's exactly right. So we'll just source the best price in the market for you. We'll cover the cost, as you said, of the spread and the slippage that a lot of these platforms charge. But ultimately, if we're doing it through an OTC desk, those spreads are pretty minimal. It's only if you're doing it as a retail individual. So if you're going on an exchange and doing it that way, where you'll be charged those spreads. So that's exactly right. As I said, we can source liquidity from a whole range of different sources. So let's just say we list Canton, and Canton we can get through an OTC desk and a few other platforms. We'll go to market and we'll find the best price possible that we can get for a client, whether they're buying into it. So if they're buying into something, the best price is the lowest price. If they're looking to sell their Canton, again, this is in the hypothetical world that we listed. I'm not saying we list it at this stage, but if we were look to sell it, we'd obviously look for the highest price in the market that someone's willing to buy that Canton that client can sell into the market for. So that's how it works on our end. as you said before, we incur all the slippage and spread fees involved in that transaction. We just look to get the best price possible for our clients. And we'll actually do it through our own liquidity. So this is something I can go into more detail. But we won't actually expose client assets to these liquidity providers and OTC desks. We'll actually use our own working capital as a business and just make sure everything's balanced up in the back end.
Okay. I like that. Let me take a look into here. I do math on Kraken. This
Yeah,
person
that's
here,
good.
I'm sorry, what?
Sorry, I just read that comment that I think you're about to mention around the name is I Am Lamplighter, which is a great name.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
just said I did the math on Kraken, 3.5% is pretty well market rate. And so that's exactly right, Lamplighter. It's pretty much market rate, but I assure you that in times of volatility, that will actually blow out. So Kraken will charge, their spreads will widen as there's more volatility in the market, right? Because as you can imagine, if there's more demand, they can charge higher spreads because people are willing to pay that spread. So it's usually market rate. It's usually even better in volatile nature because we won't change our flat fee. Our flat fee will always be 3.5%, regardless of whether it's volatile or it's not. And then that's, as I said before, not factoring in for all the additional benefits you get through us that you maybe not necessarily experience on an exchange.
Jamaica one says this is very educational. Thanks, KB. KB, I don't know who KB is, but maybe they mean CB. I'm not sure. Maybe there's somebody on here called KB. But okay. Can Kalen Brown custody my WadsPay tokens? That's what someone has. WadsPay?
I've never heard of it. So, as I've mentioned a few times, if there's an asset that we don't list that you'd like us to, we'll never say no to going through the due diligence process of seeing whether we can list it. So, um, I'm not sure who actually made that comment, but whoever it was, if you have an account with Calvin Brown, I always recommend reaching out to your broker and asking if we can list that asset. And then our operations team will go through the process of reviewing it, researching it, and seeing whether it's actually feasible for us to list. Now, if we reject that token request on a first review, that doesn't mean we won't list it again in the future. It just means as of right now, it's not a sufficient enough for us to list it.
Let's look right here. AOD. Hulk, man, I know this is not much, but we love you. Right on. Thanks very much for that tax-free donation. I'm doing my best. Jim's doing his best. Try to get everybody to get where they want to go. Let's see here. Mike Gilbert. So the protection, Jim, Mr. Gilbert is talking about protection and custody. Tell us just very briefly about like Fireblocks and their reputation and how Fireblocks helps Caleb Brown or what the relationship you guys have. Just so some people know that some exchanges have like insurance or whatever, but like why is Fireblocks so good? Why is Caleb Brown joined with Fireblocks?
Yeah, sure. So I'll provide a brief overview of how we custody for clients and how we protect client assets. And as Hulk mentioned, certainly an element of is our partnership with Fireblocks. And I guess the difference between what we do and an exchange as well when it comes to custody. So as Hulk mentioned, we have our own cold storage institutional grade custody solution that we offer for clients free of charge. And that's developed through our partnership with Fireblocks. So as Hulk mentioned before, Fireblocks are one of the preeminent custody solution providers in this space. They've been around for a really long period of time. They work with the largest banks and crypto institutions use their solution. And so we've been in partnership with them now for probably 4 or 5 years. And ultimately, what that means is they've provided and developed a solution. And then we've built and added our own, what is called TAPs or transaction authorization policies on top of it. I can get into the details of how that all works if you like, around how we shard private keys and use HSMs and all of that. I'm aware that that's probably a little too technical at this stage, but ultimately what it means is that if you're a Caleb Brown client and you're holding your assets with us, those assets are held in cold storage. We don't touch them. They just sit there until you decide to make a trade or withdraw those assets. Ultimately, you're the beneficial owner of them. So I want to stress that as well. So it's not like you're custodying your assets with us and we own them. They're your assets. We just hold them on trust on your behalf. So that's another thing to keep in mind is that unfortunately we've seen on exchanges with, and I've experienced it again personally. Unfortunately, I've had a few issues in the past, but I had assets on FTX when that business went under. It turned out I was actually a creditor and I didn't actually own those assets. And if you went through the fine print of FTX, you could actually see that that was the case. So with us and how we operate, it's very different. As I said, we hold assets in cold storage, and the benefit is that those are segregated, but the assets are accounted for one, which is quite rare in crypto. And usually that's why you'll see with other services and platforms that they'll offer yield and they'll have benefits that you can get in terms of custody with them. But what that means is your assets aren't readily available. So if everyone decides to withdraw tomorrow, that's where they impose things like limits. That's where they impose things like delays. Whereas with us, all assets are accounted for on a one-for-one basis. So if in the awful scenario, every single client decided to withdraw their assets from Kale and Brown tomorrow, we'd be able to actually facilitate that. So that gives our clients peace of mind. Now, our custody solution is free of charge because we've just had so many clients over the years that have had issues custodying themselves and wanted to go through a trusted service like ours to custody on their behalf. But it's free, but there's no obligation for clients to use our custody solution. So we very much encourage clients to set up their own cold wallet if they're comfortable doing so. We just have many clients that don't want to deal with the stress associated with becoming your own bank. And so they'll actually custody with us and there won't be a charge through that. So that's what we offer for clients. It's through our partnership with Fireblocks. It gives a lot of our clients peace of mind with the benefit of cold storage custody, but also accessibility. Whenever they want to make a trade, they can. So again, that's something we offer for clients, but it's not like it's a requirement for you to use our custody solution.
I have a question. What are like the top five? I don't know if you have the answer to this. What are like the top three custody providers in the world?
Yeah, so I'd definitely include Fireblocks within that. I would say Anchorage is another one. So Anchorage is one of the top providers as well. They have a great custody solution option. Who else? I'm not sure if Fidelity has their own or maybe they use Anchorage as well. I would say the two market leaders are probably Fireblocks and Anchorage. They're best in class, but something I want to stress as well, because there are a few other influencers out there that say they use Anchorage or what have you. You're only as good as the actual solution that you have. So you might have an Anchorage solution through your business, but unless you're actually providing the necessary security protocols and have the necessary tax in place, as I mentioned before, around policies, you're only as good as the solution that you use. So we have obviously used the solution through Fireblocks, but we've built on top of it, and we're putting in place security layers to ensure that we'll never be compromised on our end, or that there's a sufficient level of authority within our business to ensure that nothing can happen internally. So we've built this out over a 5 or 6 year period. I've seen it internally through our operations team, and it's something that, look, if you go on our website, you can see everyone that works in our team. We put a lot of money, we put a lot of focus into the security and consumer protection side of this business, because that's what's most important when it comes to our clients and making sure that their wealth is protected.
Joe Leho, thank you for your tax-free donation to this channel. Appreciate that. One of the things you said that I liked, this is what I like to hear. There's a difference between, if you have crypto somewhere, you can be considered an account holder or an account owner. Now, at Kalen Brown, you just told us that we are the account owner, OWNER. So we own these cryptos, not you guys. My account that I have, I'm the owner of this account. From what I understand, if I go to like a bank, I'm an account holder. So technically, my money's not even really my money inside of a bank. At Kalen Brown, one of the things that I appreciate is that account, I own it, not Caleb and Brown. Nobody else, not it, it's me. And that's a difference. When you put your money, you have it on an exchange, that's your account, but you're not the owner of that account. They are, you're holding that account. Same like in a bank. So Caleb Brown is different in this respect. Worst case, explain just very briefly, because I think we're getting close out of time here. We got 13 minutes. Okay. If there was a crypto exchange and all the customers were account holders but not owners, what most likely, if that exchange owes shareholders a lot of money, where's everybody's, like, let's say if I have an account somewhere and I'm the holder, what's going to happen to my account more than likely?
Again, it would depend on what's happened to that exchange or platform and where you rank in terms of the creditor claims. As I said before, I can speak from personal experience here. So I'll speak on a past event. I'm not going to speak on a hypothetical that has a lot more complexity to it. But from the example of FTX, I had crypto on that platform. Obviously, that business went bankrupt and went under. I was a creditor. So my assets that I was holding with them, I thought I was the owner of them. Turns out I wasn't. Unfortunately, FTX were operating more like a bank when really they shouldn't have been, and they were operating like an exchange. So I had to go through a creditor process, and that took the best part of 2, 3 years to go through that process. Now, I don't know too much about insolvency and restructuring claims, but usually there will be people at the top of the claims list, and creditors will be further down. So my assets I had to essentially wait. And so the big thing with that was, well, okay, this business has gone bankrupt. Do they even have this money yet, available anymore? And so obviously through a restructuring process, they have to go through, okay, what are the assets that this exchange currently has? But my creditor claim wasn't the first claim, right? I think first would be investors, maybe employees that maybe need to get paid as part of they'll probably rank higher than me. So in a short in a short term, it's an absolute headache, and it's not something you want the risk associated with it because ultimately they're your assets, right? So I don't know if that's how it would work on another exchange, but I certainly wouldn't want to take the risk there. Whereas with us, as I mentioned before, we're bankruptcy remote. So if we were to go bankrupt tomorrow, which is not feasible and wouldn't happen, but let's just say in the hypothetical that it would, the only claim that our creditors would have is on the actual assets of the business. They would not have claims over client assets because we don't own those assets. Those assets don't form part of our company assets. They are our client assets. So that's something that is really important to be aware of, regardless of whether you're using Caleb Brown or elsewhere. And I've gone through that creditor claim process with FTX, and it's not a fun process. So that's that's how we've always operated as a business, and it gives our clients peace of mind that they actually own the assets they custody with us.
Okay, somebody asked, is Caleb Brown going to have a phone app for Android?
It's in the works. So for those that aren't aware, our phone app went live a few months ago, but only on the App Store or the iOS App Store. So if you have an iPhone, you can download the Caleb Brown app and do everything that you can do on a web browser or in your phone. For our Android users, it's going to take a little bit more time. So we're still working through how that would look for them. In saying that, if you're an Android user, you can still log in through a browser on your phone. I know it's not the same as an app, but unfortunately, I don't have a timeline yet on when that will be launched for Android users.
Okay. I know there's a question that we had, but any last questions to go over? There's something I was going to ask, but I forgot. I probably won't be able to remember it, but let me check here. Danny Outer City Arts. Thank you very much for your tax-free donation. How close is Caleb Brown to allowing us to purchase with a debit or credit card on the site? I pay fees to Uphold and these other platforms, but I'd rather pay those fees on the best platform, Caleb and Brown.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Danny. It is certainly something that we're reviewing and working through, as well as a whole range of other product offerings and suites around lending, staking, loaning, all of the above. But we do understand, especially for our US clients, that bank transfers are probably not as common as they are here in Australia. And probably the main reason why we didn't offer it initially is just because of the fees associated with that. It's quite expensive to go through these payment providers to then allow clients to on-ramp. And so naturally, a lot of our clients didn't want to go through that process initially, and we're happy to do bank-wide transfers. Now, Obviously, times are changing, and a lot of us do buy things online now with our debit, credit, and credit cards. So it is something we're looking into. But certainly, what I would say to many people on this call is that the bank wire transfer actually is quite quick and seamless. Especially once you've done a few, it'll actually process quite quickly. So, Danny, I don't have a date for you at this stage, but I know that we are reviewing it. We have in the past not offered it just because of the fees associated that we'd probably have to pass on to our clients. But at this stage, it's a wait and see. But I'll certainly let you know if any updates are made on that front.
Oh, yeah, and with that subject, could you look into MoonPay? You ever heard of that company called MoonPay?
Yeah, yeah, I've used MoonPay before. Yeah, again, another great business, and certainly we're looking into integrations with businesses like that. We've just found again that the fees associated with on-ramping through MoonPay, which I've seen before, are quite significant, especially compared to if you just do a bank wire transfer. Usually, there's no fees associated with that. So, yeah,
Okay.
MoonPay is a market leader when it comes to a payment processor. And it's a good reminder. Let me speak to our operations team and our product team that are thinking through all of this and see where we're at with it. Because I know that that does come up a lot, and honestly, we want to make sure that the service is as seamless as possible. And I know that a lot of you want to on ramp just through your debit and credit card. So that's a nice little reminder. Let me follow up with that, and hopefully, in our next live stream in a couple of weeks, I'll have a bit of an update on that.
Okay. Let me see where we are as far as time. We got 6 minutes. Any
Yeah, I
last?
can see a few more questions if you want me to. Yeah, I can see a few that I don't think we addressed. So I'll just
Okay.
quickly go through them. So John had asked, we get a list of what you have listed so we can prepare to move over to Calum Brown and reorganize non-listed tokens in exchanges. Unfortunately, we don't publicly list all of the tokens that we have on our service and platform. And the reason for that, John, is that it just changes all of the time. We're adding new tokens, we're removing some. So it's always a bit of a fluid space on our end. What I would suggest, and again, this will allow you to do that process, is just create your Calum Brown account. So go through that process, get verified and set up. And then within your own Calum Brown account, you can actually see the assets we list. So if you're a current client, you can log into your Calum Brown account and you can search for all the assets that we currently have. Now, if you're someone that wants to move stuff over, I would recommend doing that currently. And then go from there in terms of then being able to transfer those assets over. So that's one of the questions. I can see that there's another. So D Curry asked, is it an option for Calum Brown to hold keys, or do keys remain in our possession? So
Oh,
with
yeah.
our custody solution, we handle all of that for you. So you don't need to worry about private keys. You don't need to worry about protecting that. We store the keys ourselves for clients, and now that's done through a process called multi-party computation. I won't get too technical with it, but essentially that private key is sharded between three different parties. So it doesn't mean that we have full access to your assets. It requires multiple authorizations for any transaction, including through the client as well. So that's the benefit of using our custody solution. And for a lot of clients, they store their assets with us because they don't want to deal with the stresses of having to protect their private key or listing that down somewhere. So that's how it works. You don't need to stress about private keys when you create a Calum Brown account.
Do you know anything about ISO 20022? Does Caleb Brown work with that particular messaging system, or is that just banks?
Sorry, where's the question? Sorry, iOS
No, I'm
or
making
ISO
it up.
tokens.
But somebody was talking about the ISO 20022. It's a messaging platform. I think that's just
Okay.
the banks, but do you guys deal with ISO 20022 messaging systems or no?
Yeah, so I think the question might be around. So that's a kind of format that a lot of tokens are now listed. So, for example, XRP, XLM, these are ISO tokens, and so they form part of the ISO kind of, I guess, the way of operating. So we list a lot of those ISO tokens that you're mentioning. If that's the question, we aren't ourselves operating on the ISO. I'm lost for words on what it actually is, but it's a kind of a way of working, a way of operating. We
Yeah.
aren't part of ISO 20, but we list tokens that are part of considered to be ISO tokens. So I think that might be the question. We list most of them.
Okay. Um, I think, let me look through here. Yeah, what's going to happen on November 22nd? for what I believe, it's you guys help me out with the date. I don't really follow this too much. I don't care about dates. Some people are like, oh, but what was happening is all the banks in the world, like the SWIFT system, they're going to use this messaging format platform called ISO 20022, and it has rich messaging. So when banks would send money overseas, sometimes this money would get lost. And that's not going to happen anymore with this ISO 20022. It's like, imagine instead of having short code words, you could have two or three paragraphs, let's say, of instructions. Bank of America, do this and that, and then do that. And then it gives all these instructions. And a lot of people have this belief November 22nd is the day where ISO 20022 goes live. I'm not holding my breath. It's all it is. It's a messaging format. And cryptos will take off when we have real world use case. And you got to have everybody's laws be the same. You got to have tokenization. So I'm not one that focuses on, oh, what's going to happen when Swift goes live. Nothing, in my opinion, ain't shit going to happen. Because you got to have real world use case for crypto. Then you got to have tokenization where you tokenize real world assets, put that on the blockchain. That'll keep it from dumping. It'll keep it'll keep it at a stable level. So I just don't get everybody gets all hyped up when they hear a date or something. Ain't shit gonna happen. So let's look here. I think that's about it. Let me just do one last minute quick check. Why is it best to hold on Kaylen Brown versus hardware wallets? I
Yeah,
guess
that's a great question.
okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to address that one. So I wouldn't say one's better than the other. The main difference for me is that with your own hardware wallet, there's an accessibility perspective that you maybe don't experience, that you can experience with Kaylen Brown. So the example I love to give is that there was a time a few years ago where I had USDC on a hardware wallet. I was currently overseas. Now, most sane people, if they're traveling, they're not going to take their hardware wallet with them just because there's obviously risk associated with that. And so while I was traveling overseas, USDC started to depeg, which meant that usually USDC is backed 1 for 1, but it started to drop. And so it dropped to around 70 cents. And I wanted to sell out of this USDC, but I couldn't because I couldn't actually access my hardware wallet. So that is sometimes the issue that a lot of people face, is that if they travel a lot and they're not going to take their hardware wallet with them, it means that you can't enter or exit out of positions if something happens in the market. And this is the crypto space. So there are things happening every day, and often there's a high level of volatility. So the difference with Kaylen Brown is that you get that benefit of the cold storage solution that you get with the hardware wallet, but you get the accessibility element. So you can just email your broker, you can log into your account, and you can always access your account and make a trade. So I would say that's the biggest difference. Our cold storage solution is institutional grade. So it's similar in the sense that we custody in cold storage for clients. But ultimately, the only key difference I would say is the accessibility angle, and the fact that if you're going to have your own hardware wallet, you become your own bank. So you have to have the necessary security protocols in place. You need to make sure that those assets are readily protected. And if something happens, there's no recourse or anything. You are the bank. So there's a certain level of risk and stress associated with that a lot of our clients don't necessarily want to experience on a day-to-day basis. So I wouldn't say one is necessarily better than the other. It just depends on your personal circumstances and your risk tolerance.
Okay, that sounds good. Let me do this. I think right about now it's 6:01. We've been having the show about an hour. Jim, thank you for showing up. Appreciate it. Answering the questions. You've made stuff very clear for my members, and that's good. Kaylen Brown is a definite partner of my program. I trust their custody solution with Fireblocks to keep my crypto safe. And that'll do it for this show. Maybe in a couple weeks, we'll try to get Jim back on again and go over something.
Yeah.
So just if you got
I was going
questions.
to say,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry. Yeah, sorry to cut you off. I was just going to say, look, we said we'd probably talk about the markets a bit today, and I feel like we didn't really get to do that just because there was so much engagement from you guys, which was great, and so many questions. So I'm not sure if there's something that you'd be interested in, Hulk, or maybe just let us know in the chat if you're interested in this. But maybe we can do another session next week or early the week after where we can actually just talk about what's actually happened in the market because it is a bit of a stressful time and there's a lot of anxiety and uncertainty around where we're currently at. Obviously, Bitcoin has nosedived over the last week. So if you're interested in us doing another one of these where it's maybe not so much of a Q&A, but we can talk a little bit about more the markets, maybe just let
Yeah.
us know in the chat or Hulk if you think it's something we should do. We can organize a time for later next week and get that done because I know that we said we'd speak about the markets, but we just ended up answering a lot of questions, which I'm happy to do. But it's a very interesting time in the space. So I think it might be worth talking about it at some point as well.
Okay. I think sooner rather than later. Um, let's go with this. Maybe okay, today is Thursday, moving into Friday tomorrow in the United States. Friday. How about like Monday, Tuesday in America? That so it'll be what's today is Thursday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. How about like 4 days from now, like on a Monday?
Yeah, let me look at my calendar. Maybe you and I can connect offline. I think this time should be pretty good for me. So maybe Monday would
Okay.
work. I would just need to look at my calendar. But yeah, I mean, we're getting, seems like everyone in the chat wants to chat about the market. So look, guys,
Okay.
hold steady. Hulk and I will organize a time. We'll let you know in advance. But yeah, that sounds good. Let's do sometime early next week.
Okay, everybody, somewhere around Monday, Tuesday-ish, or something like that, we're gonna have another Caleb Brown. We're gonna talk about what the hell's going on. What are we doing? What are we not doing? What should we look out? How should we prepare? These kinds of things. What the hell's going on with Bitcoin? Why is it like at 90,000 or less than $90,000? What's going on in the whole crypto market? We will ask Jim from an industry perspective what he's seeing. What are his big clients doing? And these kinds of things. We'll focus on that. So the next show that we have, I mean, you can ask basic questions, but we want to focus on for the next show market conditions, what's going on, and what should we be aware of? Something like that, right, Jim?
Yeah, that sounds good. Sounds like a plan. So yeah, thanks for
Okay.
jumping on and attending today, and we'll do a show next week.
All right, everybody. I'll see you on my next broadcast.